Hi there, my name is Lisa Whitehouse and I am the artist behind Whitehouse Art. For today's tutorial, I'm going to walk you through a few of my tips and tricks I like to use when working with watercolors. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to see other videos just like this one, and if you don't mind hitting the like button below, it helps the YouTube algorithm and helps me get found, so I really appreciate it. So first things first for my tips and tricks, I like to use an ice cube tray when working with watercolors. It's a little bit strange. I used to use the palettes from the supply store, but I found that the ice cube trays are just a little bit easier to use. The paint doesn't bleed from compartment to compartment. One question I'm often asked on my videos is, how wet do you keep your watercolors? And do you keep them wet in between using them? And the answer is yes. Sometimes when I am not using my watercolors, they will dry out in between, but most of the time they always have a little bit of water in each of the squares. If I need to re-wet them, I keep this handy dandy water bottle around because it helps do it quickly, and I only need to wet the watercolors that I want to use. I used to try using the tap, but sometimes I would overflow them and wreck the colors and muddy them, so I find the spray bottle just gives me a bit more control. The next thing I like to do when I'm working with watercolors is I love to have paper towel around. Always keep towels or reusable towels around because there is a lot of mistakes made with watercolors and it's really easy to correct them if you do it right away. When I'm working with watercolors, I also like to use a water tray that has two compartments in it. This one right here, you can see one side is super dark and one side is a little bit lighter, still a little bit dirty. But the idea here is that you can clean your brush in the dark side, and then the other side is used for doing clear water washes. And that way, when you add clear water down on a loose painting, you won't get a blue tinge to your water wash. It's just easier. You can always flip it around too. If you don't do a lot of washes, you can flip the tray around instead of having to get new water all the time. For brushes, I have a number of brushes that I like to use every day. My favorites are my dagger brush. You can see it's a little bit tattered, but my dagger brush, my liner brush, and my flat brush right here. I love these three brushes because they each serve a different purpose for me. I use this one for detail, just using the tip. I like this one for fur and doing even some washes. And then I use this one for splatters because it holds quite a bit of water in it, so it really lets the water go and creates the nice splatter loose effect. If you're working with watercolors, I recommend trying out a large variety of brushes. You can see here that I've tried out so many different kinds, and all of them come in handy at one point or another, but I do tend to resort to my three favorites most often, and then I use these when I'm trying out something new. For paper, I like to use a watercolor block, and my personal favorite is the Canson Montval watercolor block, and I really like the 9x12 size. When you're using a watercolor block, you don't need to tape around the edges in order for it to stay flat. It has a gum around the edges which holds the paper to the rest of the papers on the block. And that way, when you're done, all you do is remove the top sheet at this small opening right here, and then you're ready to start on the next one. When you're starting out with watercolors, it can be overwhelming how many different options there are. There's tubes, pen sets, markers, pencils. I'm sure there's a lot more I haven't even heard of. I like to use the tube paints. It allows me to have my own tray, as I mentioned before with the ice cube tray. It allows me to re-wet them over and over again, and there's a huge variety of colors available to you. I started out with student watercolor sets. It allowed me to experiment, have fun with it, and not break the bank on watercolors. That's because when you're starting out, you do tend to redo a lot of paintings. And I feel like it kind of sucks when you spend a lot of money on watercolors and you have to keep throwing them out. Whereas if you spend a little bit less, you can feel more free to make mistakes. That being said, don't spend too little. If you go to some of the big box stores, they'll have student grade watercolor sets that are so cheap that they don't even react the same way as the professional grade. As you move up in price, you're going to notice that the watercolors are a little bit more vivid and easier to work with. So don't hesitate to spend money once you're committed to working with watercolors and want to take it to the next level. And last but not least, make sure to start out simple and build on your knowledge. Watercolors can be overwhelming for the beginner. Sometimes people say that it lacks control, it's hard to work with, and you have to redo it whenever you make a mistake. And to a certain degree, that is true. But if you start out with some simple tutorials like the one on my channel, you will find that you can sort of build on your knowledge and get better and better and take more and more risks as you go on. I always tell people when I'm doing classes in person to just remember to breathe. There is a tendency to hold your breath when you're working with watercolors and get really nervous that you'll mess up. But I mess up all the time. I'm not afraid to throw out a painting if it doesn't turn out. It's not the end of the world. The important part is to learn from it and figure out how the watercolors reacted and what you can do differently next time. I really hope that this tutorial was helpful for you guys. If you have any other questions or comments about this video or anything else you want me to cover, leave a comment below and I'll be sure to get back to you or maybe even create a new video about it. Thank you so much for watching. Please hit the like button and that subscribe button below. Thank you so much. Have a great day.